Now, I want to tell you about a bit of a story that's happening in my life at the moment, a newfound fear. And the last few weeks, we've been having some unwanted visitors in our house, and it's freaked me out, like, horrendously. This newfound fear, I'm not a cat lover, but I would have 10 in my house this week if it wasn't to do with these unwanted mice. Mice in my house, and the mouse, I've never felt so scared. And so I'm talking from this morning about a mouse that has brought a lot of fear into my life. Okay, so we all face fears, whether it's mice or spiders or whatever, but the more the fiercest or more fears that we do face day to day, obviously, are the fear of rejection or fear of man or whatever that fear is for you. I'm sure you've been thinking about that as the girls have been talking as well this morning. One of my major fears is actually speaking in public, and I really, really struggle with it. And I fear about stuttering, because I do stutter when I'm up here. It's your nerves that gets the better of you, and I stutter, and everything goes to blank, and I don't know what I'm going to say, and I forget what I'm saying, and I don't feel very confident at all, whether it's public or whether it's even on a one-to-one or in our small groups. I fear about what I'm going to say all the time. Even last week when I was hosting the family service, I said God when I should have said Jesus feeding the 5,000. And you sit down and think, oh, goodness, you did it again, Leah. But fear, it's dangerous. It can be a danger. And fears can hold us back from moving into our destiny. Like you might have a fear of flying. That could stop you from going on mission trips that you were destined to do, or fear of letting people close to you, or fear of rejection that it stops you from joining a life group, which is all part of purpose for our lives. But the thing that I've really noticed, I've learned a lot through this mouse, and it is just a mouse, it's not a family. It's not a family, it's just one mouse. And this mouse that I've been seeing, I've learned a lot, learned a few things. And the first thing is, it paralysed me. I jumped onto that settee and did not move for ages. My feet, my legs were just to jelly, and I just wouldn't move. And Luke turned up so many settees around the house just to find this one mouse. And I just couldn't move. It paralysed me. Fear will do that. It will stop us. It will trip us up. It will paralyse us. And to stop us from moving into our destiny. In John 10:10, it says, the thief comes to rob, steal, and destroy. And fear is like that. It is a thief. It takes away our freedom. It imprisons us. It paralyzes us and stops us from crossing over into our destiny. Another thing about this mouse, I realized, is I began looking for it everywhere, every room that I was going into. I would just look for this mouse. And even if I thought something moved in the corner of my eye, it was the mouse. And I found it was consuming me. I began looking for it everywhere. And with our own fears, we can often do that. We start looking for the fear. We anticipate it being there, and we allow it to come and be a part of our lives. And if we allow it too much, that's when it becomes that foothold, and anxiety will start to come in. Thirdly, about this mouse, I began talking about it a lot, too much. It was in my conversation. It was in my head. It was just coming out of me. I found that I was talking to Luke all about it, sick to death of this flipping mouse. Trev, giving me great tips on how to get rid of this mice. Our life group, I'm surprised if they'll actually come back this Tuesday to our house, because the stuff that I was talking about this mouse. So, yeah, but we will give in to our fear if we let it become a part of our conversation. If that's all we're talking about, then we need to be careful. We need to change our conversations and speak truth into our fear. Also, in the night, have you ever noticed it's in the night times when it gets you? In the night, your conversations in your head will start to, it just magnifies the whole fear, doesn't it? And in the darkness, it comes back with vengeance. And I was laying in bed this week, and I was just thinking about this mouse, and I was hearing it scratching, and it was very loud. It wasn't. It was actually the rain on the window. As Luke's had no sleep, bless him. I just keep jolting up out of bed because thinking, this mouse I can hear. But I was hearing what I thought was the mouse, but they weren't there. And lying in bed, I kept jolting up and thinking about it. And the devil comes, like I said, to rob, steal, and destroy. And the devil will try and get you in the darkness. He'll try and get you and blow your fears right out of proportion. And that's when the fears will creep in and start having a conversation of you. It deprives you of your sleep and rest, and because he wants to stop you from overcoming your fear and crossing into your destiny. And the last thing was, obviously, we wanted to get rid of this mouse, and we bought every kind of contraption that there was. I'm sorry, animal lovers, but this mouse had to go, dead or alive. He was going. And so we bought everything that we could think of, and we tried it. And for a week or two, we didn't see him. And that was great. Like, okay, he's gone. He must have just been that one time. Oh, no, Monday, 3 times I saw him. 3 times. And I just was petrified. I just could not sleep. I had no sleep. But so in the end, on Donna Shaw's advice, we bought these plug-in things that you can send out high-frequency things to stop them from coming in. And do you know, they worked. I'm so at peace. They do work. And so they're in every room, right by my bed where I sleep. There is one there. But they do work. And do you know what? Since then, though, I've had such a sense of peace. Such a sense of peace. And not that I'm bringing Jesus down to a plug-in thing, but when we allow Jesus to walk with us through our fear, that's when the peace will come. That's when the peace and the rest and the sleep will come, because you know that Jesus has got your back and actually is working in the background all the time. Even if you can't hear him, even if you can't see him sometimes, he is always at work. And Luke eventually caught one. It was alive, much to my dissatisfaction. And he drove it to the woods, as going far away as possible from our house. And the girls went with him and they let it go. But you know, that's what fear does. When I saw the mouse alive, it's actually so small. I could have sworn it was like a cat-sized mouse. But that's what it does, isn't it? The devil blows the thing out of proportion. It makes it so big when there's something so small. With God, we can do all things. With Jesus, he will give us the power over the devil. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? God will often use the very thing that you're most afraid of for his glory. But it's up to us to allow not the fear to get the foothold in our lives. And going back to my public speaking fear thing, I was thinking I actually really relate to Moses in the Bible. And he had a stutter and he feared about speaking in public. Moses went from being a confident, affluent young man growing up in the palace to suddenly fleeing and having so much fear and timidity inside. We can learn a lot from Moses, and we're going to pull out just 4 things that we can learn from Moses, crossing over from fear to freedom. The first thing is God will help you. In Exodus 3:12, we see that Moses gave God every excuse under the sun not to obey him. He didn't want to go and speak and do all that. But God told Moses, I will be with you. He wanted to come alongside Moses, and God wanted to calm his fears and build his confidence. God wanted Moses to dream again. And all through the insecurities, God said to him, I will help you speak and teach you what to say. God knows our fears and our insecurities, and God will help us and equip us and empower us to overcome them. Secondly, we need to do it afraid. Moses had to face his fears. He couldn't get around it. He tried to. He just couldn't do it. He knew that his destiny was going to help set the Israelites free. Everything God asked him to do, he challenged him to step out and face his fears, to the point where Moses had to make the decision to follow God no matter what. We need to obey God despite how we feel inside, and that is facing our fears. I could have happily said no like the other girls, but we had no choice. But today we're facing our fear. Thirdly, we need to expect resistance. Sometimes things actually do get worse before they get better. And some of Moses' fears came true. What he thought would happen did in fact happen. He had to go to Pharaoh 10 times. He must have felt the rejection every single time. But he was determined not to give up and to keep moving forward. Resistance will come. But like Moses, we need to keep moving forward. And the fourth thing is we need to get back up. Each time Moses went to Pharaoh and was rejected, he came back stronger and more confident. Failure builds persistence. And after each failure, Moses came back a little stronger and more confident. God uses the conflict and rejection to build us. Growing up in the palace, his confidence was in who he was in Pharaoh's household. But now all of a sudden he's had to rely on God. God was his foundation. He realized he couldn't do anything without God. So just to apply this now, how do we cross over from fear to freedom? And you might be sitting there thinking, but Leah, I can't help that I feel afraid. How can you tell me not to be afraid? But just because you feel afraid doesn't mean that you have to be afraid. Just because you have fear doesn't mean that fear has to have you. You may be sat here this morning thinking about those dreams you once had, but it is fear that's stopping us moving forward into God's best for you. You're not on your own because God is for us. He's not against us. You have to encourage yourself and stop listening to the voices and the conversations that are negative in our minds, that freezes us, that paralyzes us not to do anything. But we need to move forward into the purposes of God that he has for us. And we do that by keeping his word on our lips. We're told to meditate on the word day and night. And actually, did you know there was 365 verses in the Bible about fear? That's one for every day. So God must have thought we needed that in our lives to overcome fear. It's pretty big. So what's your catchphrase? What are the negative conversations that's going on in your head? But we need to change that today and say, I am more than a conqueror. I can do all things through Christ. Christ is in me. His grace is sufficient for me. We need to talk ourselves into freedom, talk ourselves into your destiny. I will not be afraid. My God is enough, and he has equipped me to do what I need to do, whether it's for me, whether it's speaking now or raising my children in a godly way or pouring into our kids at kids' church, whatever I'm doing, I need to make sure that whether I'm probably still going to be full of fear, but I'm still doing it because I'm not going to let the devil have all the glory. God's going to have the glory. God wants us to be free. Can I just invite the band up? God wants us to be free. And he wants us to cross over from fear to freedom so that we can give him all the glory. So he can be a testimony of what he has done for us.